Hello, hello, good morning. I think we're live. Is there anyone already here in the chat? All right. Yeah, cool. Looks like we are live. Hey, everyone. Can we submit WIP for advice? So, um, there's no, I don't really do kind of like feedback sessions in this channel. This is more about like the ZBrush type of techniques and stuff. I do give advice and help with the projects, but that's given the time that I have available, that's kind of like reserved for my students over at the Extra Mile. So if you're interested, that's a course that I have online. But it's kind of like more than a course, so it's just a community. So we had a community where we do that. So yeah, unfortunately not in this channel, because that's not necessarily the purpose of these sessions. It's saying that I'm Thomas Whittlesback. Fair enough. I guess we'll have to do some jewelry then. Ah, okay, that makes sense. Right. No, that makes sense. Let me see if I can ping Kyle for that. All right, done. Cool. Let's. Could I say the name of the community again? So the community is a private community that is kind of like part of the course itself. So the course is called the Ultimate. The Extra Mile. The Ultimate ZBrush Guides is another course. If you go to the 3D Concept Artist, in case you're not aware, so this is a website that I have with all my kind of like in-depth courses. So you can just click on courses or just scroll down to this one. So this is the one that I'm talking about. It's called the Extra Mile, and we have, I mean, it's a full-on course from, covering everything in my workflow. But there's a bunch of, community, and everyone in there is it's really cool. So let me see if I can show you something. Right. So if you go to the ZBrush Central, I just remember this because that's something that one of my students actually just shared before or recently. If I can find it, here we go. So this is Angel Molina, and he did this character for the course for the Extra Mile. But it's a character that he's been working on for a few months, just because again in that community, in that private community, we have that ability to do live sessions, live feedback. Everyone sort of comments, and it's pretty cool. This is the community, but like I said, it's a private community. Here's one of the progress that Angel had shared. We do like internal challenges for students. I did one for this mask, where the students can download the asset and then just concentrate on masking. So this is what I'm saying. It is a little bit of it's a little bit more than a course. It's not just like a tutorial that you buy and follow. It's like a whole thing. So that's kind of like, given the time that I have to use for that, that's where I do it. The course, the price for the course for the Extra Mile, can't remember how much it is at the moment because I don't open it. It's not permanently open. I can only open it a few times a year, and that's the reason why you'll see if you log in, there's kind of like a waiting list. Just because, like I said, it's an area where I focus a lot of my time when I open it to help the new students and all of that. So again, I don't have a lot of time aside from other stuff that I do. So I try to limit that time. So yeah, it's not available as of now. But if you're part of my email list, I send an email today actually with a link to a new tutorial and letting you guys know that the course The Extra Mile will be open later this month as soon as I finish with the creature workshop, which is another live workshop that I'm doing for a week, like an intensive live session for creatures. So if you're interested in that as well, I'll just show you before we get started and we get that out of the way. So if you go here to the 3D Concept Artist, the creature live workshop, this is all ZBrush, by the way. So it's 100% ZBrush and Photoshop. I'll show you how to do everything from scratch, from like designing and concepting all the way to rendering. So we're 12 days away for that workshop. So as soon as we finish with this workshop, which is 5 days of intensive, working and creating a creature, I'm going to move on into the enrollment of the Extra Mile. But yeah, if you're interested in creatures and that sort of thing, this is kind of like a good place to start. This is giving you all the information you need if you want that. Other than that, I'll just put a link here in case you want that. But I have limited seats, as in I have just a few spots because it's live. So again, because of that reason, I need to sort of limit the amount of people that I can allow to participate. So there's still some spots available, but as soon as I reach capacity, I have to close the workshop. So if you're interested, that's it's available now, so you can just go ahead and reserve your spot. But yeah, let's get into the ZBrush stuff. So today I have like ideas for creating a bunch of different or to use a bunch of different tools or features and techniques, and I'm gonna create I don't know why I came up with this idea, perhaps because I don't know, I haven't had a burger for months, but yeah, we're gonna create a burger a burger in ZBrush. So and the idea is just all the different layers and all the different things that you can have in that burger can be part of a different tool or be done in a different process in ZBrush. So hopefully that that makes sense. So let's go ahead and start with the bonds. So let's take a sphere. So this is just I think sphere 3D, but it has a bit too much points, too many points, too many polygons. So what I'll do is I'm gonna click on a sphere again, a sphere 3D. This one right here. So this is a primitive 3D. Obviously, I haven't converted, and you see some of my UI elements disappear just because obviously they're not applicable to a primitive 3D. But if we scroll down to the bottom of the tool palette, go to initialize, we can change things a few things in here. So I'm going to reduce the poly count to, let's say, I think 32 might be a good starting point, 32 by 16, and that ratio, not 42, 32, that ratio of 32 and 16 should give us a fairly decent distribution of polygons. So that's, yeah, I think that looks a lot better. Yeah, we'll go with that and click on make polymesh 3D. So now we have a sphere. Cool. So from these we're gonna extract, or we're gonna create kind of like the bun. So I'm gonna duplicate it. Obviously one is gonna be the top, and the other one is gonna be the bottom. So for the bottom one, let's just toggle that one off. We can use, again, there's many ways to do the same thing. So the whole point of this session and this type of live sessions here in ZBrush Live is just to give you a bunch of different tools that you can use and see which one works and which one you can actually integrate into your workflow. So for this, I'm going to use the Gizmo 3D, and just to keep things simple. And I'm going to take, let's say, the flatten here, and I'm just going to squish this like so, and the same way for the bottom. that's it. That's pretty much it. So what the flatten does, and you'll notice that I sort of stopped at these two edges or edge loops, because what the flatten does is just takes all that information on all those points that you have, or let's say that you had in that sphere, and it's just gonna squish them and flatten them against that layer or that plane. So if I keep doing this all the way through here, you see we end up with these sort of like coplanar areas, which are not ideal. So just keep that in mind. So about there, that's all right. Let's click accept. And that's about it. Maybe make it a bit smaller. And we have our first piece for the puzzle. Now let's take the other one. And we can do exactly the same thing. Or, you know, we can use a different technique. We can take, if we hold Control and Shift, we can access the selection brushes. We can go ahead and use the clip curve. So the clip curve is going to do the same thing. You just draw it holding Control and Shift and move it around, let go, and it's going to do exactly the same thing as I did before. It's going to take whatever is in that shaded side of the line, and it's going to flatten it all the way to the kind of like the white line. So it's just pushing. It's not altering the mesh as in changing the topology in terms of adding or subtracting pieces. It's just literally pushing them along that sort of normal or that line. So let me undo that. So we can do exactly the same thing, holding Control and Shift to do that. And we can also hold the space bar while we still haven't let go of the click, and we can reposition this. So we can do something like this. And by the way, if you hold Shift as well, it sort of snaps to these kind of like integer numbers of the angles. So I think it's every 5 degrees. Yeah. So 260, 265, 270. Click on that and let go, and it just does the same thing. So same idea. I think I might just wanna squish this down a bit. Right. So we have the buns for the burger. Let's just gonna push this up a little bit. We'll put it together afterwards, but you know, from a sphere or a duplicate sphere and an original sphere, we can have something that works quite nice, or at least it gives you an idea of what we're doing fairly quick. Another thing we can do, just so that we can see things a little bit easier in terms of how they're gonna end up looking, is enabling dynamic subdivision for all of those pieces. So nice and smooth, and that for you guys should be under the geometry palette. You open up the dynamic subdivision and enable dynamic. That's it. All right, so the next obviously big important thing would be the kind of like the patty of like maybe like a beef burger. And for that, I want to try something different. So what I'll do is duplicate the bottom piece, which is, you know, kind of like similar to the size and shape, right? And let's turn off the rest. Or you know what, let's just go into solo mode. It's a lot easier. I'm going to turn off dynamic for the time being. And let's bring in the gizmo again, flatten, and I'm just going to squish this up like so. So it's kind of like making it a little bit more uniform. Accept that, and we can scale it up. All right, not too bad. So you could do the same thing that I just did. Remember, this was a sphere, so you could do the same thing just by bringing a cylinder and beveling the top edges, this one and this one. But that's it. All right. Yeah, I think that works. The next thing I would do for, again, this is a technique that I haven't tried, but I think it might work, is to change how this point or how these edges sort of collapse here in the center. So we can do a quick C remesher, or another alternative is to bring in the gizmo. Okay, let me just show you both. So we go to the C remesher, and we click on half, maybe enable activate symmetry, or activate symmetry, and click C remesher. And that, you know, that's pretty decent for for what we want. It's just going to simplify this, but all I wanted to do is just remove those triangles here in the center, so that when you enable dynamic, it's a lot smoother and it looks a lot better, just because it has quads all over the place. Not all over the place, but it is distributed in quads. The rest doesn't really matter. We can sort of simplify things a little bit by going to the C modeler. So right click on the edge, go to delete edge loop complete, and I'm going to simplify these two edges a tiny bit. And I think that works. Cool. If you wanted to, like, just to soften everything up, you can also use, let's do deformation. We can go to smooth. So this slider here, just to smooth things out, right? Or you can also go to the gizmo, click on the gear icon, go to the smooth modifier, right? And you can just smooth by like kind of like areas. So you can smooth this, just this side. Or if you enable symmetry with these cones right here, you can do it in both sides. So right now, the symmetry is set to 0, or this little red cone is the symmetry in the x-axis, is set to 0. If you click and drag to 1, that makes it symmetrical, but I think it's mirrored. So yeah, it's sort of like inverting the effect. So basically, the right-hand side, when this symmetry is at 1, the right-hand side is smoothing, and the opposite side is kind of like inflating, like the opposite of smoothing it. So all you have to do is click again and drag it to number 2, and you'll see how the cone on the left-hand side sort of flips, and you can do this. Right, so you see, you can give it a bit more of a rounded shape to this patty. Click accept, and maybe let's see how everything is working. I want to scale it up. It's going to be a thick burger. Get back to solo. Cool. So we have a very simple mesh, and that's exactly what we want. All right, so for the technique of making this look more like a patty, like a piece of meat, again, there could be, you can sculpt it, no problem, but we can try something else. So I'm going to duplicate that. So now I have a duplicate of that patty, and I'm going to go ahead and click on QCube, which for you guys should be on the initialize tab. You can click on QCube, and that gives you this, right? A very simple cube, the most primitive version of a cube. Well, almost the most primitive. Let's see if the chat. Hey, Luis Enrique, how you doing? Young News, what's going on? We're making a burger in 3D burger in ZBrush, just because I can show you a bunch of different tools and features with every piece. So right now we're working on the patty. So we're going to take this cube and we're going to randomly extrude a few faces just to create like a weird organic abstract shape. So with the C modeler selected, I'm going to right click on a face, and I'm going to make sure I have QMesh selected and single poly. So that allows me to do this. So I'll do something like that, maybe one more time, maybe this. So again, just focusing on creating an organic, well, it doesn't look very organic at the moment, but something that it's, in terms of the shape, it looks abstract or abstract enough to, you know, to be I'll show you. It's just kind of like hard to explain what I'm trying to do, but something random and abstract. And hopefully this is gonna make sense when I finish it, but that's the idea. Okay, I think maybe scale this up a bit. All right, so that obviously doesn't look anything like a piece of meat or anything, you know, remotely similar to what would be part of a burger. But this is kind of like a tiny little particle that we're going to use to populate that patty. So obviously, if we enable dynamic subdivision, this looks a lot more, you know, organic. And now that we have that enabled, what we can do is use the move topological with AccuCurve, And I'm just gonna move, I'm saying maybe. Let's just keep doing it. Again, I'm just trying things out here. So with the move topological, we can sort of move things around just to make it a bit more organic. But again, just keep in mind that this is just gonna be a kind of like a tiny little particle, almost like a piece of mincemeat in a way. You know, which is ultimately what the patty would be made out of if you don't have a burger that is veggie or veggie burger or something. All right. Okay, I think that looks weird enough. We can sort of smooth things a bit as well. Yeah, I reckon this is weird enough. Let's turn off dynamic. Yeah, we can adjust things a bit more. Don't worry, this I know this is a bit weird, but it all's gonna make sense in just a second. Hopefully. All right. So we have this weird particle, and we're gonna use that to populate that patty. So to do that, we're gonna use Nanomesh. So before we use Nanomesh, we have to actually create the Nanomesh brush. And the way that you create Nanomesh brushes is by creating an IMM brush first. So it sounds complicated, but it's just a couple of clicks away. So I'm gonna click on the brush thumbnail, and here at the bottom, you can see that. Yep. We're gonna click on create insert mesh, create new from this pop-up. So now we have an insert mesh, and we pretty much can do this, right? And now that we have that IMM brush, we can click on that again, and we can turn that into a Nanomesh brush. So if you don't create an IMM brush first, this button right here would be grayed out. So I'm gonna click on that, and now we have, you see, the kind of like the icon of the C-modeler appears there. You can change the icon if you wanted to, but you know, it's all good. So now this is a Nanomesh brush, and we can go back to our patty mesh, this one right here. And this is the reason why I simplify this quite a bit. And we can basically right click on a face. And you know, a Nanomesh brush is ultimately a C-modeler brush or a duplicate. The difference is that the action is selected as insert Nanomesh, right? As soon as you change this to, let's say, spin, it just becomes like a normal C-modeler brush. You can use any tool to extrude and that sort of thing. So I'm going to click on Nanomesh just because that's what we want to do. I'm going to switch from a single polygon to polygroup all, or all polygons. In that case, doesn't really matter because we only have a single color or a single polygon ID for this mesh, so it doesn't really matter. Let me just see the chat. If you have like organic sculpture and you want to use Simulator, how do you do it? That's a bit of a vague question, I'm afraid. I would use it in the same way that I'm using it right now. This is meant to be an organic shape anyway. I'm not sure how to answer that question. But if you have like something more specific, maybe I can help with that. All right, so now that we have this, let's also bring in the Nanomesh subpalette here. Obviously, everything is grayed out because I haven't drawn anything, but I'm going to click and drag that sort of weird abstract particle. Cool. So that's it. All right. So now what we can do is, if we enable dynamic subdivision, it's going to enable dynamic subdivision on the patty itself, which, you know, we might not need that. But what we can also do is click on Edit Mesh. And if we click on Edit Mesh, ZBrush is going to sort of go into the particle that we created. I keep calling it particle, but that abstract thing. And we will be able to see it on its own. And we can click on Dynamic. So if we get out of Edit, actually, I actually have to apply it to be able to see it. So let's do that afterwards. I want to distribute things first. So right now there is literally one of these abstract pieces per each one of the polygons in the nanomesh of this base mesh. So what I want to do is randomize the distribution. So in this randomize slider, we can do this, and you'll see things start to get a bit more random, and we can sort of cover the entire patty or almost everything, right? So this hopefully is going to look a lot better once I do the subdivision and convert this into a single mesh. And you know, this is something that you can also do just by sculpting it. But again, I'm just trying to show you a bunch of different alternatives. So another thing you can do is randomize the rotation. So we can go to the rotation here, and you see I'm rotating all of them at once, but you can sort of see that almost all of them are pointing sort of in one direction. So we can take the Z var. So all the right hand side sliders are to to add variation to these other sliders. So we can randomize the length, the width, the height, the offset, the rotation, all that sort of stuff. So we can just do this, and you see we're randomizing that variation, and we can actually rotate it in a few more ways. I don't know if this is gonna work, but we'll see. Cool. So, you know, you can create, I don't know, I don't know what else you can use this for, but basically this is it. We have the patty with this weird sort of shape, abstract shape, that hopefully once we apply it and subdivide it and we sort of like merge it into one, would work just fine. So let's go back to the subtools. I'm going to duplicate this. So once you duplicate that mesh, it comes with the Nanomesh and everything. So I'm going to create a new folder for that, and I'm going to call it OR. And if you haven't sort of been in these live workshops or live lessons of the ZBrush Live, you might not know what OR means, but this is a folder that I usually create with the originals. So OR is just a quick way for me to know that these are the originals. And I like to do that so that if I change things on one thing, I have the ability to go back and, you know, change, basically keep originals if I need to go back and reuse them. I'm going to turn that off. And yeah, it's there. And now I'll take this patty with the Nanomesh, and I'm going to go to 1-2 mesh. So if I click 1-2 mesh, pay attention to the poly count as well. So 258 polygons, that's just the amount of polygons for the base mesh, for the patty. So just for that. But if I click on 1-2 mesh, now we have 70,000, because now we have all of those pieces. We basically converted them into an actual geometry that we can edit and subdivide and all of that, right? So let's take the move brush. So I'm going to turn this off and enable dynamic. Look at that. It's more like a mac and cheese type of thing, but you know, I think it works, and there's definitely other things that we can do. Like the next stage would be to fix that a little bit. But you know, this is a very quick way to generate this type of meshes that look a little bit random. So you know, not too bad. Right. So the next thing I want to do, obviously, it's probably to press all of these mincemeat a little bit more. And for that, we can use maybe the edge polish or the trim dynamic. Let's just try something like this, see what happens. I think the trim dynamic is working just fine. But you can try a few things. This is, again, just so that it looks more like a patty, something that actually was pressed against the grill or something. But we still have the ability to keep that sort of randomness. right, we're getting there. Just want to make sure that I do that everywhere. Forgot the back as well. Where is Thomas? Don't know. I think Thomas is meant to go before me or after my stream. Not sure. It's just the titles didn't get updated or something. But hey, you can take what I'm doing and then take it to Thomas, and you know, he'll probably convert it into a cool jewelry piece. I don't know how cool it is to have a burger as a jewelry piece, but hey. All right, so you know, this will look a lot better once we completed the whole process, I suppose. But we still have like a bunch of intersecting geometry and weird things happening. So at this point, what I would do is, I mean, there's many different ways again to approach it. I'm just thinking of variations of things that you can do. I'm going to duplicate it so that I can show you a couple of techniques. So this is another duplicate of this. And what I can do is just click on Dynamesh, which is not too bad. And yeah, it's basically creating, merging everything into a single piece. And of course, we can increase the resolution a tiny bit more. Right, that's not too bad. And we can also go ahead and polish things. Right, so that's a decent patty, I think. Another way that you can go about it is just using the Booleans, which I don't know how well this is going to work, but we can give it a go. Let's do a quick save just in case. So this is the other patty before I convert it into a Dynamesh. So essentially if I, oops, that's not what I wanted. If I hide half of it and go inside, you'll see there is like a bunch of intersection and a bunch of polygons that we don't really need. So let's go ahead and bring in the gizmo, click on the gear icon, and we can click on Remesh by Union. So what this one is going to do is look at the entire mesh, and wherever there is an intersection and it's sort of hidden, it's going to cut it and remove it. So click on that, accept, and there we go. So obviously that cuts things down quite a bit, but it triangulates the mesh. Let me just show you. So all that connections, maybe here, it sort of triangulates the mesh, but we are, you know, we're able to sort of subdivide this or do a dynamic subdivision, which is nice. And then you can use the smooth brush to further soften this a bit. I don't know. Let's see which one looks better. I'm gonna do a quick screenshot there and move it here. So this one looks a lot more sort of sharper maybe than this one, which it might be what you want. I think I'm gonna go with the Dynamesh one just because I can create a quick zero measure or project this into the actual into the other piece that I had. Again, I'm just trying to think about different ways that I can show you techniques and tips. So let's keep both, obviously. So I'm gonna put that into the originals, and I'm gonna use this guy. And I think I see some weird holes, so I'm just gonna close holes and redynamesh just in case. And also, if I want to sort of cover some of these indentations, I can also bring in a bit of inflate, so something like that, and redynamesh obviously, and there we go. So I think it kind of looks like one of those rice crackers, but you know, we can keep working on this. So the next thing I might do is bring in something like the standard brush. I'm going to change the alpha to maybe spray. Turn off lazy mouse. And I'm going to change the alpha to maybe alpha 8. Let's see what that gives us. Yeah, that should be fine. And this is just a quick way to add further details to that piece. All right. This is being applied a little bit slower than what I was hoping, but not a big deal. All right, I think we are nearly ready with this. We're gonna leave it like this and then continue refining this patty in just a second. But yeah, I think it looks all right. All right, so let's do some more fun stuff. So let's get out of solve mode and let's put the particle thing in the folder. All right, so we have a huge patty, but we can just scale it down. Right, and maybe squish it a bit. Cool. All right, and I'm gonna turn this off because what would be the next thing? Maybe just the cheese, right? So let's do some cheese slices. For that, I'm gonna append a plain 3D. That's gonna be basically the cheese. Rotate at 90 degrees, holding Shift so that it snaps to the right angle. Maybe scale it down a tiny bit so that you can see a tiny bit of the patty. And of course, this is just a single-sided mesh. So a couple of things I want to do with this. I want to click on dynamic, and that sort of smooth things out a little bit. But the main one that I want to add is a bit of thickness. So I'm going to push that like so. So that's going to be the thickness of that cheese, but it's super sharp, like that angle. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe turn this off or turn it on. So it is quite sharp, that edge. So what you can do, and this is just because of the original plane that I appended. So all the border is set to crease, but if we go to crease, we can uncrease all, and that sort of fixes things a little bit. It actually looks sharper, but that is because I just need to smooth this out. So I can go to smooth, turn off post subdivision, and that gives me a smoother version of that border. So very quickly, what I just did there, this post subdivision, it allows or it tells ZBrush that you want to subdivide, you want to smooth that dynamic subdivision after you apply the thickness. But if you turn it off, it's kind of like doing it before the thickness is applied, and that way you get that roundness. And you can control how smooth that is from here, or you can increase the smoothness in there, and you can also add segments. So right now there is no loops, kind of like in that yellowish ring around that thick plane, but you can add a couple, and that way it sort of sharpens it a little bit more. So I think that's better for the cheese. But what's great about this, obviously, is that this is a dynamic subdivision with the thickness. So ultimately, what we can use to create that cheese is a single-sided plane, that doesn't have much resolution, which is great. The resolution and everything else is applied with the dynamic. So for this, I'm going to use dynamics, which is really fun, and hopefully we can use dynamics for a bunch of other stuff. Let me see the chat first. Hang on, I missed a few. Can you explain more about the simulator at all? Yeah, I'm happy to show you a few more things in just a second when we do another technique for the burger. I would submit one of my models, but it can turn off. But if you turn off the wrong subtool, it's gonna be oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, so the title has been updated. Cool. Alrighty. So we have this. This is meant to be the cheese, and what I need to do to kind of like drop it into the into the patty is just use dynamics. So I'm gonna make sure that I have that selected. Obviously, I'm gonna recalculate, or by default it should be like this. So for you guys, it should be like that if you haven't run the simulation. I don't know. I think I used it. I have it closed, ZBrush. So I'm gonna click on collision volume, and that basically calculates the volumes that are visible. You can recalculate just in case. So that's why I turned off the other bit of the bun, the top one, and that's pretty much it. Let's just run it as it is, and then we can tweak the things. So I'm gonna click run simulation, and that's pretty cool. I don't think I need to do much of to change this cheese, but maybe I want to have it. I want extra cheese, so I want to duplicate the plane. So let's do it again. I might want to change the firmness, and I'll show you why. So if I run the simulation and I let it go, right? Actually, it's not too bad because the cheese is meant to, melt a little bit. So I think this is fine. But if you wanted to maintain more of that shape, what you can do is add a bit of the firmness, and that way it's not gonna stretch as much. So just for the sake of demo, I'm gonna show you that with this, but I'm gonna rotate it a tiny bit so it doesn't fall, like the corners doesn't fall over the same or around the same area. So because I have this new cheese, I need to recalculate, otherwise it wouldn't take that into account when it does the simulation. So let's do that. See, and if I don't stop the simulation, you see how everything keeps like melting, which is pretty cool. It might be something that you want to do. I'm gonna scale it down a little bit, and I'm gonna increase the firmness to, let's say, 3. Run the simulation again, and that way you see it doesn't get stretched as much. Right, so we have the patty, we have the buns, we have cheese. What's next? Let's do some tomato. Some tomato to, how do we do that? Let's go for a cylinder. So I'm gonna append, I guess this is the easiest way, and I'm gonna keep this one very simple. So and just show you a different technique. So where are we? Cylinder, circle, cylinder 3D. So this is gonna be the tomato. And I'm just gonna scale this like so. Scale it down a bit. Maybe 2 slices of tomato. I don't like to have, I like the taste, but too much tomato, too much, it just overpowers the whole deliciousness of a burger. So maybe 2 slices is enough. Around that size. And I also like the tomato to be thin. I don't like thick slices again, because then you bite on them and then everything sort of squirts everywhere. So all right, so we have that bit. Now for this one, I actually want to convert that. So again, similar thing to what I did with the patty, right? That I run a zero measure with the symmetry. The difference is that you can do, not the difference, but another way that you can do it is change that from a cylinder 3D to an actual poly, I think it's poly cylinder or cylinder poly. Anyway, you'll see in a second. From this icon here, this one right here, poly cylinder, right? So the one that I currently have is a cylinder 3D, and that's why the points at the top and bottom converge into a single vertex. But if you click on poly cylinder, everything is gonna be quads, right? Perfect. And what's great about this is that you can tweak, you know, this. So you can do this type of stuff. Right? So that's one way to do it. If I undo that, if I want to keep these, and I'm just going to keep it like this so that I can, for those of you who ask about the similar, I can show you a bit more. I'm going to scale it up a bit. I can go ahead and change this whole thing. So let me go into solo mode. I'm going to hold Control and Shift and hide these areas. So basically, I just have the ring in a single-sided, and I'm going to delete hidden. All right, and then I'm going to bring in the C modeler, and I want to remove a lot of these loops around, just because I'm not going to use them, and it's pointless to have geometry that we're not going to use. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go to Delete and Edge Loop. So, so for those of you who don't know how the C modeler works, it's essentially your box modeling tool in ZBrush, and it might be like a little bit weird when you first approach it, but it's fantastic, and it's really fast once you learn some of this stuff. And you can sort of like simplify it by, let's say, right click. Oh, I'm just going to use a face. So you'll notice that it's kind of like divided into three, almost four parts. That is depending on the action. So the top area, that is your action. So that's the what you're asking ZBrush you want to do. So I want to do either delete or crease or extrude. What is the action that you want to do? The second one is the target. So it's like how you want to do it, maybe. So I'm just trying to simplify it. So this is the what, this is the how, maybe. So basically, if I select QMesh, or if I select, let's say, scale, you'll see every time that I select something different, the menus change a bit. So if I click on scale, that is what I want to do. Then the target is how I want to do it, or to who I want to do it, or to what I want to do it. So I want to scale maybe a flat border, or I want to scale everything that has the same polygroup, or I want to scale, you know, all triangles or all quads. So you can select exactly what you want to do, or to everything, or to just one single polygon. And then the rest is just like modifiers to that target. So you can say, I want to scale a single polygon, and I want to scale it from the mesh center, or you want to, you know, scale it with the local symmetry, or from the center of the polygon, etc. Right? So that's how it works. So if I want to delete a loop, I can right-click on an edge, and I want to select delete, and I have different targets. So I can delete just that edge, or I can delete the entire loop, or just a partial loop. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm going to delete everything but the two loops at the end. Or actually, let's delete everything and I'll show you something else. So I want to still have a few pieces of geometry here, maybe one or two. So I can also right-click the edge and go to Insert. And again, once I click on Insert, it's kind of to insert a loop around, and I have two options: multiple edge loops or a single one. So I'm going to use multiple so that I can click and drag and add as many as I want to. So I'm going to do that, right? And if I want to close these, if I want to close the gaps or the empty spaces, I can right-click on the edge. I can go to Close, and I have two options: concave hole, that's going to create a bunch of triangles, or convex hole is going to basically converge everything to the center again, so what I had before, but I'm sort of like recreating it. So I want to click, and that connects everything, and drag. And you can, by the way, you can drag left and right to add loops. Up and down to add loops, and left and right to. So if I go up, I can add these loops, and then if I go right, I can inflate this like so, or flatten it. So I'm just gonna add a few like that. And what's great about the similar as well is that it will remember the last settings that you use. So for the one at the bottom, all I have to do is click on the edge, and it will remember exactly how many loops and everything I did. All right, so let's just polygroup that, and let's just scale it down. Remember, this is meant to be kind of like a tomato. tomato thing. And yeah, that's it, I think. So let's do dynamic. Cool. So I think just to show you something else before I place it into the burger, I'm gonna subdivide this. So I'm gonna use another technique. So I've been using subdivision, dynamic subdivision, and Dynamesh, and Nanomesh, and all of that. So this one is the most common approach or workflow, which is if you want more details, you just subdivide the mesh, right? So I just subdivided this to one level of subdivision. But you can do it this way, or if I undo it and click on dynamic, you can have a preview of how things are going to look when you subdivide. So that allows you to, let's say, if you want to add another loop here to make it a bit sharper, all you have to do is right click, insert, single edge loop, and I can click and drag, and you see as I drag, it sharpens that edge. So I can do that there, and maybe another one at the bottom. Right? So again, you can sort of see how, and this is still a dynamic subdivision, but you can see how things are going to look. All right. Again. Yeah, I'm the right subtool. So you can click on Smooth Subdivision to add more. So this is essentially telling ZBrush that you wanna, or you're currently looking at how many subdivisions you would have if you were to apply this. So let's do 4. So it looks pretty smooth. So let's click on apply. Once you applied, all of those settings get sort of baked in, and now we have 5 subdivision levels. So this is the tomato, and we have all of these subdivision levels. Again, different methodologies, and we still have relatively good amount of points. We can still run a simulation with this, no problem at all. So we might do that. Now let's go ahead and do polypaint, just so that this tomato doesn't look just as a ring. So let's go ahead and use, let's turn the standard brush. I'm gonna reset that brush, and I'm gonna turn it into a polypaint brush just by turning turning off the lazy mouse, the Z add, and turning on the RGB. Let's also switch to skin shade 4, and I'm gonna start with a red orangey color as a base. Fill that object. So now it is all one color, and I can just go ahead and maybe switch to a darker red for the border, and then just start painting around like so. Maybe not that as dark. I'm gonna keep it bright, right? But because this is a cylinder and I haven't actually moved it from the center, I can take advantage of the symmetry. So I can enable symmetry, activate radial symmetry, and activate that in the y-axis, right? So we have all of these points. So for you guys, transform so that the radial symmetry is on the transform palette. So you can just go to this area. So all these buttons and everything is what I have in here. By the way, if you're interested in this UI, the one that I'm currently using, and if you are interested in customizing your UI in ZBrush with a purpose, there is a tutorial in my YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description, in the chat, and then you can go to the link in the description of that video, and there is a link obviously where you can download that this UI. And I also have two. So when you download it, there are 2 files, one for left-handed people and then another one for right-handed people, where all of these things that you see on the right-hand side are on the left. Again, because that's the reason I have it set up like this. You see, I have barely anything on, or have nothing on the left-hand side, and that is just so that I don't have to cover what I'm doing with my hand when I'm doing that. I lost the opportunity for a red wax in the tomato. Not at all. It's completely intentional, the non-use of the red wax. Where is it? Here we go. So I'll put it in the chat. So this is a tutorial I have on customizing the UI of ZBrush, and I walk you through everything. But if you go to the description of that video, there is a link to download this UI in case you want to follow along what I'm doing as well with this UI. I would recommend you do your own, but sometimes I get asked about this UI and happy to share it. And by the way, there is also, I'll put it in the chat as well, there is a brand new tutorial I released it today as well, this morning, on using VDMs with Sculptris Pro in ZBrush, which is pretty awesome. So if you're interested in that sort of thing as well, I'll just drop it in there. Yeah, and if you subscribe and turn on the notification things, I will be able to let you know when there's more videos. All right, so I'm just gonna add a bit of this slightly darker color towards the edges, and because I have the radial symmetry, everything is a lot easier. All right, now to get into the sort of like tomato shape, I'm gonna turn this into 3. So the radial count, I only have 3 pieces of that brush, and I'm just gonna go for a lighter, almost like a pink color. And I have like a random reference of a tomato that I found. So just try to follow it a little bit. All right, and maybe like some seed as well. Maybe turn off the symmetry now, and so it's a little bit more random. And again, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing in ZBrush. Again, this is just another way that I want to show you that not everything has to be sculpted. You can very easily use things like polypaint just to make something look more complex than what it actually is. But using this radial symmetry, of course, makes everything a lot easier. And you can turn it on and off every now and again so that it doesn't actually look as symmetrical. There we go. So we have the tomato. I'm not gonna do the other side, but hopefully you know how to approach that. Now, if you want to, you can of course go ahead and let's say maybe with the clay brush. So let's select the clay brush, and the clay brush by default has the RGB enabled, so I'm gonna turn that off. So you can push things out like so. I'm gonna turn on this material, and I'm gonna enable symmetry again, and I'm just gonna push just a tiny bit to add a tiny bit of variation there. So if I turn off the polypaint, you see it's just a tiny bit. You can also use this smooth brush, but be careful, smooth brush also has RGB, so holding shift, turn that off so that it doesn't blur the color, but you can obviously blur the rest. Just adding a tiny bit of deformation there just to make things a bit more organic, but most of the deformation would come from the dynamic. So we have the tomato ready and we're gonna make a couple more. So let's duplicate, or just one more. I only need 2 tomatoes in my burger. And we'll do the polypaint for the rest in just a second. All right, so let's turn off symmetry now. I'm gonna push this to the side. turn one off in the meantime. So around there should be fine, maybe closer. So this is not necessarily a trick, but it's a good tip. If you're gonna run a simulation on something, just try to push it or position it closer so that it doesn't take as long, instead of just leaving it there and run it so that you wait all that time to run it. So just put it closer to what it should be, or where you want it to run that simulation. Let's go to the simulation and let's recalculate. Okay, now the maximum point resolution is set at 250 points, and I have 135,000 polygons, so it should be pretty easy. I just recalculated. Let's go ahead and click Run Simulation, just because the amount of polygons, it might take a little while, and let's stop that there. Stop it. Okay, so that obviously destroyed the whole tomato, but what I can, that's, I mean, this is the idea, and I wanted to show you why. That is because I have tons of resolution, and I have very limited simulation iterations. So what I can do is undo that, reduce the polygon count, right? That's why we have subdivision levels. Maybe something like this, recalculate, just in case. Run simulation, and you see it's a lot easier to run that simulation on a lower count, but you still have the ability to go back and forth. Now, if I undo that melted tomato, what I can do is enable the firmness. So I'm going to try to keep everything very firm at 6, and I'm going to increase the simulation iterations to 268. So that way I'm allowing ZBrush, the dynamics in ZBrush, to catch up with the gravity, let's say, or with the other settings. So the more iterations that you have, the more accurate the rest of the settings would be. So hopefully that would maintain the shape a bit more. So let's click on Run Simulation. There we go. Not too bad. I mean, it still is not great, and that is also because the strength of the gravity is too much. So let's go for 1. Right, and that allows me to sort of stop the simulation when I need it to. So click Run and stop. Maybe a bit more. There we go. So now it's very nice. And let's do the same thing with the other tomato. Let's recalculate so that it takes into account the first tomato. And let's move that. Oops. Let's move that without symmetry, like there. Maybe slightly larger so that it looks like it's the slice from a, you know, if it is the same size, it's from a different tomato. All right. Recalculate. You don't have to do this. I'm just like obsessed with making sure that every time that I move something, I recalculate. Let's run simulation. Stop. Brilliant. So now we have tomatoes. And what's great is that we have the subdivision. So we retain all that poly paint in there, which is great. It looks like a little bit cheap. Maybe we can add another tomato there. Okay, so no, I think 2 tomatoes is fine. Let's go ahead and add. How are we doing time? Oh, we have plenty of time. This is fun. So what I'll do is let's go ahead and do the poly paint at the end, so we can just poly paint everything. But pickles, I don't like pickles with burgers. I know this is weird, but I don't like pickles that much. I know it's a deal breaker, but yeah, we can do pickles, but lettuce. We definitely need some lettuce. Lettuce and maybe some onion, bacon. Anyway, so maybe you can do beetroot and a fried egg. That's the Australian burger. It's actually pretty good. At first, when I first tried one, I was like, nah, but it's actually really good. All right, so let's do the lettuce, because I think I can show you something else that would be pretty cool. So for the lettuce, let's go ahead and append a sphere. And let's see if that is going to work. So let's go into solo mode. Yeah, beetroot it tastes really good. So beetroot and a fried egg on top of everything else with the lot is so good. Nah, no pineapple. Forget it. No pineapple. But I've tried the watermelon, just like a slice of watermelon on the grill, and you just grill that watermelon. I got that from a vegetarian friend, and it's really really good. I haven't tried the pineapple, but I think it must be around the same thing. It's really good. I didn't think so, but it's fantastic. Anyway, going back to this, if for the lettuce, because of the nature of how the shape of the lettuce is, you can model it and then you can just modify it and sculpt it and that sort of thing. But I think if we utilize some of the new tools in ZBrush, we can try something cool that might work. Again, I haven't tried it, but I'm imagining it might work just nice. So I'm gonna use this snake curve, right, which is meant to be used like this. So I'm gonna create a curve that goes around. It doesn't go around, so let's just do this. We can go, let's just try to snap that. So where are we? Picker, where's the picker? Picam, depth. So continuous C, that should work. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Hang on. Yeah, it's snapping. All right. So let's have that there with Sculptris Pro, actually. Interesting. I think this is meant to be. Am I in the right subtool? Hang on. Why is it not Okay, let me just try something else. Zero measure guides. For some reason, the curves. Maybe I'm projecting something. Depth is fine. Zero depth. Continue Z closest. No, that's fine. It's almost like it's just using. Hang on. If I hold Shift. This is something weird. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it's meant to be. You know what? Let me just do something else. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna delete this because I don't know. This might be the reason. Let's just use a cylinder 3D, turn it into Polymesh 3D. Let's go back to snake curve. Nope. No idea. The depth mask. No, it should be fine. For some reason. No idea. Alright, I'll have to do something else. And this shouldn't be the default, but set it to 100. Still not there. Yeah. I mean, when you draw the curve, it's meant to snap to the surface, but for some reason it's not doing it. I must have something on. I could just initialize it because I've been, playing around with stuff, so I could just initialize it and that should work just fine. Let me just do that because I probably have something that I don't know what I enabled, but it should work. Oh, hang on. No. All right. What I'll do is save this and I'm going to reset. Just give me 1 second. I'll be back in 2 seconds. All right, we're back. I just reset ZBrush. I haven't tried it, but hopefully it would work. If it doesn't, we'll do something else. It might be just a little weird bug or something. Is there a way to change the color of the current subtool bar selected in the subtool menu? Not sure. Oh, you mean the actual highlight? So you mean these just to so that you know what is highlighted? Is that anyway? I don't know if that's what you're asking for. All right, so I'm gonna append sphere, and if it doesn't work, it's nothing to do with the curves. Curves in ZBrush are actually pretty easy. It's something to do with the way that they're placed, because all of the curves for some reason are being drawn in the same way. So let's see what happens. So snake curve, skip. All right, it's fixed. So, I don't know. There was something with my ZBrush, so I just reset it. All right, cool. Let's scale that one down. All right, so now with the snake curve 5, I'm just gonna draw a curve like this that goes around. So if you want to continue a curve, you just hold, or not hold anything, just go closer to the last point, and you'll see they sort of snap to that red line. So click, and then you can continue doing that. So I'm just gonna do that for a leaf of the lettuce. And these brushes work a lot better, or they're intended to work with Sculptris Pro. So I'm gonna enable Sculptris Pro and maybe increase the size a bit. And obviously the size of your brush determines the resolution of what you're going to do next. Did you already review the file submission? Ah, that's right. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was it. I had some undo history saved. Anyway, so now that I have this selected and this curve, I'm gonna click and drag to create this, and you'll see, hopefully, it's kind of like a lettuce. Maybe reduce the size a bit. Remember that the size is meant to, oh, maybe, hang on, let me undo that again. The size of the brush is meant to be the resolution. I'm gonna undo that because I think I did too long. And this is kind of like a trial and error type of thing. There we go. All right. So this is gonna be the lettuce. Not too bad. I'm gonna do another one here just in case I can get something a bit better. And maybe another one in here. Don't worry, these are just like quick tests, and we're gonna clean everything up a bit in just a second. Just wanna try to get the curvature right. And these are ultimately experimental brushes anyway. So, all right. So from these 3 lettuce things, I think the one that works the best might be this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and select my select lasso, select that, and delete the rest. Delete hidden, and we can now go ahead and maybe before dynameshing, let's just close holes. So that closes everything, right? And let's bring these back to the center. Something like that, right? All right, so we have this weird lettuce. So let's go ahead and make it a bit more interesting. So I'm gonna use the, maybe we can use the taper, for example, the deformer. So the taper allows you to sort of change the tapering, obviously. So I wanna do that, but I wanna show you something else. So First, I'm gonna taper this down a bit. So this is gonna be kind of like the beginning of that lettuce. And then I'm gonna taper this out like so, right? But you'll notice that as I taper things out, it sort of inflates. So there is a way that you can sort of reduce the opacity of that inflation or of that tapering on each axis. So if you select this y-axis, the opacity of that effect is going to be reduced. So you can do that, right? So it doesn't affect the actual tapering, it just reduces the effect of that inflation in that axis. So that's what I want. Cool, let's click on accept. Maybe let's do another one. Maybe twist, let's see. A bit of twist just to put that back, sort of like back to normal. Let's see, bend arc, bend curve. What can we use for this? Maybe stretch? Nah. Let's try with bend arc first. So I'm gonna push this down like so. I think that's not too bad. And let's accept that. So it's just a bunch of different deformers to get the shape that you want. Pretty rough. And I'm gonna use the move brush with AccuCurve so that we get pointy effect. And I'm just gonna sculpt the rest. And we can also go back to, let's say, we can continue using the same brush, like this snake hook brush, or the snake, any of these snake brushes, and we can just create a curve there and then continue this process of adding complexity to the lettuce. Right, so something like that, but obviously I need to tweak this a lot more. And I'm going to create a couple of pieces. But again, this is Sculptris Pro is still pretty sketchy and rough. We just need to create the bases. I'm not too worried about the topology as long as it's kind of like the silhouette looks all right. We work on the rest later. I'm just going to actually push some points out a bit more. There's also tons of different types of lettuce. Just thinking of one in my head. I don't even know the name. Is it like a ramen lettuce? I don't know. Anyway. So the next sort of tip that I can give you, once you have what you want, let's go ahead and duplicate it. Let's drop it into the original folder so that we have that as original. So this one, it has a single polygroup, but it's going to be a lot harder to manipulate and tweak and do the rest of, let's say, the dynamics and everything if we have this the way that it is, this pretty sketchy form. So one thing we can do is go to the polygroup section, and we can group by normal or group front and all of these things. So I'm going to group by front, click on that, and that basically is grouping based on the camera. So if I rotate around, that should have a different polygroup. I think that's great. You can change the angle as well, so it will change the polygrouping at a 90-degree angle, but that's by default that's pretty good. But I think I'm going to use the polygroup, the green one. So I'm going to hold Control and Shift to access my selection brushes. I'm going to double that. So this is a single-sided brush, and I'm going to delete hidden. And you'll see there are some like stranded little polygons floating around. The easiest way to remove them is first to click on auto groups. So that auto groups everything that is not connected. So there's a bunch of little polygons floating around. I'm going to hold Control and Shift to select the one that I want to keep and delete the rest. And just to be sure, because again, it is a Sculptris Pro, and Sculptris Pro tends to, I mean, we use that tool to generate these. Sculptris Pro tends to sometimes leave some holes. So I'm gonna close holes. Forgot to, let's just delete that. Cool. Forgot that it's just a single-sided mesh. So if I close holes right now, it's going to basically give me a solid piece. So let's just leave it as it is right now. We could manually close the holes, but you know, I think it would just work just fine. In fact, we can just add. Actually, let's just do let's just do what I just said I was going to do. Let's close holes. So that would close and give me a solid piece, but it would also close some other random pieces here. So all we have to do really is take that new polygroup that gets created and delete that. Delete hidden and make sure everything is grouped. That's it. So now at this point you can just go ahead and, for instance, do a Remesh. So let's just try that. So Remesh and have the points. And by the way, you can also keep the crisp edges if you wanted to. Let's do that one more time. And one more time. And actually, I don't mind. I know this doesn't look great, but I don't mind the kind of like the holes. Like I said, you can manually close them if that's something that interests you. But I think I'm gonna leave them as they are, because that will give it more like an organic shape. Again, let's try it by closing holes, removing that polygroup. You know what I did wrong last time? Yeah, everything had the same polygroup. So I want to select this one, and those pieces that were, all the little holes were filled with the same polygroup that I deleted. So that's why, yeah. So in fact, let me just undo that to do it properly. Forgot to do that. So before we run the Remesh, we had this, right? Like a solid piece, right? So what I did, I hid the rest, or I hid this polygroup and I deleted it. The problem is that all the little holes, all of these things were created with the same polygroup. So we actually need to auto group this so that when I delete the green polygroup, all the rest of the little polygons are there. So delete hidden. So now it should maintain, like we don't have any holes now. All right. So let's do the Remesh now. Now we have should have a cleaner version of this, or at least not with holes. We still have the weird border, but that's kind of like what I want to have. That's the reason I use that snake hook brush for the border, because it just creates that broken sort of shape, an organic shape for the lettuce. All right, so that's my lettuce done. The rest of the details will come probably from Polypaint, but now we can place it into our burger. So I'm going to rotate it around. In fact, let's just do the Polypaint for this very quickly, because this is not going to need a lot of detail. And I'm also going to enable dynamic with a bit of thickness. Same deal as before, as what we use for the cheese, but this one is not going to have as much thickness. And there's like a tiny little stranded polygon there. I'll delete that. Auto group. There's a couple of stranded polygons, so it's a good idea to do that auto grouping and then delete it. the hidden ones, and there we go. So that's the lettuce. Let's use the standard brush that we need to convert into a, painting brush, and let's use a vibrant color for this lettuce fill object. And I'm gonna use spray and alpha 22 with a different color. To generate that sort of veiny type of look. And maybe a brighter green towards the edges, and maybe a wider color towards the center at the bottom. And I'm gonna switch to the normal, no alpha. Again, this is super quick. I wanna have time to finish the burger, and we still have to do some kind of like pickles maybe. So I'm kind of like rushing this a little bit. Pickles are not a must at all. All right, so I'm gonna push this down. Again, just to be safe, I'm gonna duplicate that, put it into the originals so that we can keep it, and I'm gonna do one more slice. Scale this up a bit. All right, and this one is going to be, let's go to dynamics, and let's recalculate the collision volume. And we can run the simulation, but again, just to show you once more another technique, you don't have to run the simulation as long as you calculate the rest of the volumes. You can do, for instance, you can bring in the gizmo that works with Claude. So the transpose and transpose Claude. So that's a gizmo. It looks like nothing changes, but it's actually different. So this gizmo actually works with whatever dynamics you have set up here. So if we go ahead and do this, I can just keep pushing down, and that gives me that sort of cool result. So I'm gonna do this, and I think that's fine. I don't want to run the whole simulation necessarily, because lettuce are meant to be, or at least this is what I envision as a perfect burger. The lettuce needs to be crispy. So let's do that with the other one. This one we can maybe squish it in a little bit, and that gives me, that sort of, again, more veiny effect. And that is because I'm using, by the way, I forgot to mention that. Let me undo it for the other one. So because I'm using this transpose Claude, if I were to scale everything down like this, you see I get that wavy pattern, which is fine. Let's just leave that one as it is. Or you can also scale it in one sort of axis if you want to have more this type of wrinkles that are kind of like more directional, right? But let's just do something like this. Maybe scale it up as well, and let's rotate it. The rotation doesn't affect anything. And yeah, let's just move this down until it sort of hit up. Before I do that, I need to recalculate, because we need to take into account the new piece of lettuce. Right, so we have the lettuce. I'm gonna scale this one down a bit, as well as the previous one. I just want to see more of the tomato. Let's just leave it as it is. Because I have already kind of like an in-between, like a sandwich of the lettuce and the tomatoes. It's just gonna make a funny thing, but all right. So we have that. Let's do a couple of onion rings very quickly. That's gonna be pretty easy to do. What is the smart transpose? mask. This one is just to mask areas. It's actually really fun, but I'm gonna rush through the rest, but you know, so that I have time for completing this. So append. Actually, before appending anything, let's go to very quickly to cylinder 3D. And because this is a cylinder 3D, I can go ahead and change a few things. So I can go to initialize, and I can make it. I can increase the inner radius to make those onion rings. Reduce, set to 32, but reduce the V divide, and that's it. Let's click on make polymesh 3D. I'm going to scale this in the y-axis, so that's my onion ring right there. And let's copy and paste in there. So a couple of onion rings. What I'll do is go into solo mode. I'm also going to enable dynamic subdivision, and I'm just gonna add, not thickness, I'm just gonna add, actually with the C modeler, it's gonna be faster, an insert loop at the bottom and at the top. So one there, and inside as well. All right. And let's apply dynamic subdivision, maybe one more subdivision level, couple more, 5 subdivision levels, just the usual thing, what we did with the tomato, pretty much. And I like the Spanish onion for my burger, so I'm gonna go for a purplish color here. Turn this off. Radial symmetry again, just to work a little bit faster in the y-axis. Add a bit of that sort of nice purpley color. The Spanish onions, bit of the white as well here. And again, I'm trying to rush through this, but that's basically my idea of an onion ring. All right, cool. So we have now that. We can go back to the lowest subdivision level. Duplicate this a few times. And that's it. Let's go ahead and do the first one. So dynamic, recalculate. I'm gonna go for a 6 in the firmness, more simulation iterations, and reduce the gravity to 1. Drop that onion ring in there. Perfect. Let's go for the second one. Same deal. Recalculate, because now we have a new onion ring. Run simulation. There we go. And final onion ring. Recalculate. Let's just move this closer. Run simulation. Another thing you can do is, if you want to adjust this with dynamics, you can use the move the cloth hook with a large brush size, and that sort of respects that intersection of volumes. All right, we have that, and again, we can increase the subdivision level, all of those. Okay, we're getting there. What else? We need some pickles. Let's do, what do we have time? Yeah, let's do some pickles. Again, not my favorite thing, but, or actually, let's do bacon and forget about the pickles. You can do the pickles in the same way as I did the tomatoes. So I just want to show you something else. Append a plane. We're gonna use a plane for the bacon. 90 degrees. Scale that. So we're gonna do a couple of these nice bacon strip. So go into solo mode, and with the symmetry enabled, I'm just gonna do a zero measure very quickly, just to simplify this a bit. And we can go ahead and do some quick painting as well. So let's add the basic one. Without symmetry actually, and we might need to subdivide it one time and delete lower so that we have more resolution. All right, so here's our bacon. I'm gonna add a bit more of fat, because that's the nice and juicy bit. All right, so that's it. Now we can take the gizmo with the transpose cloth, and I can just go ahead and do this, maybe scale it. Oh, I have to change the firmness a little bit so we get more. In fact, let's go ahead and use the dynamic to add a bit of thickness. And let's throw it in the, or actually, use the move brush just to show you something else. With the move brush, what you can do as well is enable from the brush palette. This is a cool one. So in the brush palette, you can go to curve, not curve, to depth, and you can have infinite depth. So if you enable infinite depth, by default is the Z-axis. So the Z-axis is this blue axis right here. So actually would have to rotate. You can either rotate this around, which is the easiest one, or turn on maybe the X, right? This little icon here. So whatever point I move in this area is going to be in that axis. There's going to be infinite depth in that axis. So I can just use the move brush to just do this. Sort of like crisp up this bacon. It's going to change when I drop it anyway, but I just wanted to show you. Yeah, and then maybe tweak the borders a little bit. All right, for this one, what I'll do is I'm gonna add a few strips of bacon, obviously. Hold Control and duplicate. So this is gonna be in the same subtool. Maybe scale it down a bit and rotate just to variate things a bit. And another one. Clear the mask, and now we have these 3 pieces of bacon. that's very healthy. And let's increase the firmness and recalculate. Run simulation. Whoop. Let's increase that to 0.5. And let's turn off dynamics so it just does it a bit faster. Run simulation. Great. Turn on dynamic. So now we have nice bacon. What else do we need? So we have lettuce. We have what's the time? Okay, so no pickles. Forget about the pickles. But just want to show you something else. So let's finish painting these guys. So nice cheese, melted cheese. I'll do the same thing for the bun. And I'm gonna crisp it up a little bit. And we have the other one, the other bit. Let's do that as well before we finish it. Ah, I forgot. I just want to add the. Yeah, this is another technique that I want to do before we finish. So just want to show you a cool way to add sesame seeds. So I'll show you that. I'm gonna make this a little bit more golden, like a sweet bun. Every element of the burger has to be just right for being a great burger. Okay, let's do a quick save. So for the sesame seeds, let's do that very quickly. I'm going to turn off the polypaint just so I don't get confused. I'm going to take the same piece of bun where I'm going to potentially place those, and actually this is a, yeah, so I'm going to duplicate that one, drop it in there, in the originals, go into solo mode, turn off dynamic, and let's clear this a little bit, and let's use anything. Could be a sphere, and we're gonna make it a polymesh 3D and turn that into a Q-cube. Right, so just a simple thing like that, and I'm gonna smooth this out or polish it just so that it becomes more like a sphere, and scale that a little bit more. So this is gonna be the sesame seed, so scale in the y-axis, and maybe taper that as well, like that. Already looks like a sesame seed, doesn't it? Okay, and I'm gonna divide that one more time, delete lower. So that's done. That's the sesame seed. So let's go ahead and click on create insert, new, same thing that I did for the patty. So another nano mesh. Let's go back to our bun, and I'm gonna turn off symmetry. And because this is a nano mesh now, I'm gonna go ahead and select the areas that I want to add those. So I can just click and drag to create one on each one of these things, but I want to scatter a few. So we can actually hold Control and Shift, and let's select this and polygroup it, right? And then maybe, just maybe, actually let's use the select lasso just to randomize things a bit. I'm gonna hide a few pieces of this polygroup, and the idea of this is being that you know, if I had a few of these, whatever I hide, whatever part of this polygroup that I hide, there's not gonna be any sesame seeds drawn in there. I think that's enough. All right, so polygroup that, invert, polygroup that. Cool. So the blue polygroup is where I want to have the seeds. So I'm going to right click, click on polygroup all. So all the seeds are going to be drawn in just the blue one. Click and drag, and we can determine the size and rotation and all of that later. All right, so now let's also enable dynamic. Go to Nanomesh, and we can go ahead and randomize this a little bit. We can vary the rotation again. We can vary the width a little bit, and the length, and the height as well, just so that it's more, you know, they're not all the same size. And we can control the overall size here with this slider. So you see they're roughly placed where that polygroup is, but they're placed randomly, which is cool. All right, so we have sesame seeds. Let's go to inventory, want to mesh. If you want, you can actually separate those because they have different polygroups. So let's do that actually. Right, and I'm gonna go ahead and split hidden. So now we have the sesame seeds and this piece. So let's turn on polyframe, not polyframe, polypaint, and let's paint the sesame seeds with you know, the sesame seed color. Oops, fill object. All right, not bad. cool. We have time. We have 7 minutes for pickles. Forget it. Forget about the pickles. I'm not doing pickles. This is my burger. I don't like pickles. You can do the pickles in the same way that I did the tomatoes. It's just like a ring. In if you wanna add like those kind of like ridges, you can. I don't know. You can. Fine. I'll do the pickles, but I'm not happy about this. Let's append. Let's append a cylinder 3D. Let's go in here. This is gonna be the stupid pickle. All right. Just to show you something else, if you want to do that sort of like kind of like clip thingy, not clip, but yeah, you know what I mean. So what I'll do is I'm gonna create a new folder here. I wanna call it S for stupid pickle. Let's put the pickle in there, and I'm gonna duplicate, and I'm gonna hide everything, so we can only see these two cylinders. So this second one is gonna be larger, and I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees. So far we have two cylinders. One is going to be the actual pickle. This one that I'm going to use is for creating those sort of ridges. So have a look at this. If I hold Control and click and drag, I will duplicate, right? I haven't let go of the click or the Control. Now, if I just leave it maybe around there, yeah, maybe around there, and I let go of the Control without letting go of the click, I can just duplicate this at the same distance. So that's pretty cool. All right, clear that mask, and let's center that a little bit, increase that, and move it down. All right, and maybe let's scale this to the size of a pickle. And let's duplicate this guy as well, or we can just hold Control and duplicate it like that. And probably you know where I'm going with this. Basically, these tubes are going to be the booleans to subtract this thing. So I'm going to enable this one right here, or like this icon to subtract. So this bunch of cylinders are going to subtract from this other cylinder. If I enable live booleans, this is your pickle. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on the cog icon here and click on boolean folder. So that created a boolean. So we can bring everything back. I guess it's not too bad to have pickles in the burger, but go in solo mode. So here's your pickle, kind of, but it's just a boolean. So what I can do is activate symmetry, and we can keep groups. Click on see remesh at half, just to try to get something a bit more going. Because of the difference in polygroups, it's fine. I can just hide those ones, mask, invert the mask. I'm going a little bit faster here, and I can sort of inflate this a bit more and polish it, just so I can sharpen that, and then just manually smooth things a bit more. All right, so that's kind of like a pickle, I suppose. Let's go ahead and subdivide a few times, and let's add that disgusting color of pickles. Kind of like a green in brine. They've been just like soggy and disgusting. Fill object. Yeah, so that's kind of like that's a pickle. So as you can tell, I don't really like pickles. This is kind of like in mustard or something. They're actually not that bad. I just prefer not to have them in a burger. They're not a happy surprise. All right, cool. All right, so we have the pickle. Let's turn off the bun at the top so that we can drop this guy. That's not the one. All right, so scale that down. All right, so how many pickles should we have? Let's let's not go nuts with the pickles. Let's do 3 pickles. And we can duplicate a few times. 3 pickles is more than enough, I think. I mean, 1 pickle is enough to ruin a burger, but you know, if you like pickles, 3 is enough, I think. All right, so let's go for dynamics. Recalculate, obviously. Firmness of 5, fine. Run simulation. Let the pickle drop to a comfortable position. Same thing as this one. Recalculate. Run simulation. Oh, you know what? Just make it a bit more interesting, because they were all sort of facing the same direction. Nobody's gonna be that careful putting stupid pickles on a burger. All right, and this one as well. Recalculate, run simulate. Did I get the right one? Yep, run simulation. There's some like weird intersection here. That is just because, again, let's set the firmness. It should be fine. All right, cool. So we have pickles. In fact, let's just take the move. Where are we? Move, transpose. I'm just gonna move this around a bit more. Let's leave that one as it is. Cool. So we have everything. Oh, I haven't painted the patty, so let's just do that very quickly, just to wrap it up. Fill object, and I'm gonna use color spray and alpha 8. I like to be, I like the kind of like crispy, almost charcoaly flavor on the patty. So we have a bit of a green color there. So let's go to the stroke palette, go to modifiers and reduce the color to 0, so that there's no color variation. We don't get weird alien bits and pieces. 9 out of 10. I reckon, yeah. If I remove the pickles, it will be 10 out of 10 for sure. The best burgers I've ever had. My favorite burger ever is a burger that I ate in an airport in Dubai, I think. In Shake Shacks, I think it's called. That's been like one of the best ones. There's another one here in Melbourne called Lerner House of Love. It's the best burger, the best veggie patty actually. It's delicious. And there's another one that I really like. That is from Royal Stacks as well. It's fantastic. And always, without pickles, so it makes it even better. All right, so one more thing very quickly is just to increase realism, I suppose. I'm gonna go to the masking, mask by cavity. So it will just mask out those lines, invert that mask, and I'm just gonna go for a darker color of this fill object. Or actually make it a bit more bloody. No, not that much. That's disgusting. I like medium rare type of thing, but in a burger it's not ideal. And we just need to blur the mask a little bit. All right, we are nearly there, or we're finished basically. The only thing that I would do, just for fun, to finalize this and to show you one more trick, is I'm going to take the patty, not the patty, the bun at the bottom, duplicate it, and I'm going to move that to with the normal transpose, no symmetry, scale that like that, because this burger has no sauce, so it's a bit pointless. So for the sauce, I'm just gonna scale this up. I'm gonna hide part of it, turn off dynamic as well, delete hidden. So now I have this piece that, you know, could be, let's add tomato sauce. I'm not a fan of the mustard, or not that much, or mayonnaise maybe. So, but let's go for tomato sauce. Fill that object. So that's going to be tomato sauce. Go to, and actually, I'm going to subdivide this one more time and delete lower, so you have more resolution. I'm going to recalculate, and I'm going to remove this, so it's going to be a firmness of 1, so it's going to be pretty liquid, and I'm going to enable liquefy. So let's see what this one gives us. Set it to 3, the gravity, drop that in there, and just let it rest a little bit, right? And then what I can do is maybe reduce the simulations again. Reducing the simulation is going to make it less accurate, but it allows you to, you know, expand things. And I'm going to allow the expand. Let's see what that gives us. That's a little bit too much sauce. Let's do it very quickly. Like that. That's enough. And then I'm going to turn dynamic subdivision with thickness. And also I'm going to smooth the rest. Right, and apply that and delete lower. So we have this mesh that we can polish a few times. So that's the sauce. There's quite a bit of sauce, and you can take the move brush and obviously adjust things a little bit and place that tomato sauce wherever you want to have it. I mean, I think I went overboard with the tomato sauce, but I just want to show you one last thing that is pretty cool. Right, so I'm gonna take the snake hook brush, the normal snake hook brush, and I'm gonna enable Sculptris Pro, and that was close. I'm gonna do a quick save. So I'm gonna enable Sculptris Pro, and with the snake hook brush, what you can do is hold or click and hold the Alt key. Let's turn off RGB, and if you hold the Alt key, it sort of like sticks to the mesh underneath, so you can do that sort of like dripping effect. And you can hold the shift key and let go of the shift to, maybe this is way too much sauce, but you know, it doesn't really matter. The burger already has pickles, so it's not gonna be any good. And one more sort of dripping piece around here. The good thing about the tomato sauce is that it's covering all the pickles, so it might pass as a nice burger anyway. So all of this piece is going to be a snake hook brush. No, snake hook brush, sorry, Sculptris Pro. All right, and just to wrap it up, let's take the bond with the sesame seed. And obviously, these are two separate subtools. So the way that you move this around, you can bring in the gizmo, right? And you can turn on this like pizza icon, click on that, and that will move everything at once. So once you have this enabled, this icon here, you can hold the Control and Shift with the gizmo selected and just select which ones you want to move. So as long as you sort of go over, you see the rest are kind of like with these hash lines, and then we can just do this. Give it a bit of a rotation so that it's not as all right. So that's not bad. We can tweak that tomato sauce a bit more. And look at that, you don't even see the pickles. It's brilliant. Cool. So that's our burger. I guess we don't, we can do you can do the fries and the rest. Maybe we can do that in the next stream, and we can finalize the combo with some more techniques like using the C modeler and that sort of thing. So that could be good. All right. So that is pretty much it. Then because everything is a single or separate subtools, you can export that and just play around with different materials as well, and add everything that you need to add to make it look like a more realistic thing if you wanted to. I might do that afterwards if I have time, but there was more thing I wanted to do. No, I think I covered most of it. You can see most of it anyway. Do a quick save, and I'm gonna throw in a quick BPR render and just leave it there. All right, this is our ZBrush burger. So hopefully you found this relatively weird thing useful. By the way, you can also, if you want to add more details, because this one is kind of like a stylized burger, but you can add, you can use noise in the surface noise to add details to different things, and it's up to you. But yeah, hopefully you found some of the techniques useful. Just to wrap it up, in case you were not here before, to let you know, there is a new tutorial in my YouTube channel. I'll share the link once again here. I think you might find it useful. It's all about the VDMs with Sculptris Pro in ZBrush. Right. So if you want to have a look at that, that's just sharing some techniques of how you can sketch and use the VDMs in ZBrush with the new, well, not the new Sculptris Pro, but now they support Sculptris Pro for a sketching technique that just it allows you to iterate really, really fast. So that's a recent tutorial, so feel free to have a look at that. If you're interested in the Extra Mile course, the course that I have online, it is scheduled to open at the end of the month. So just letting you know that that might be coming. And also, there are still some spots available in the Creature Workshop, which is coming up in like about 12 days. Yeah, so 12 days and 13 days, right? So I'll drop a link in here. As soon as I reach capacity, as soon as all the rest of the spots that are filled in, that are available filled in, I'm just gonna close enrollment. So this is due to close. The enrollment is due to close a few days before the workshop. But as soon as I reach capacity, I will close it. So if you're interested and you might wanna join this live workshop of 5 days in a row of pure ZBrush and Photoshop at the end, make sure to check that out and you grab your spot before yeah, they go fill in. Alrighty, so hopefully again this has been helpful, and I will see you next in a couple of weeks actually. Alrighty.